Welcome everybody. This is Abacus Fish, and we are playing old school D&D. Got a Hexcrawl West marches coming up. This is session 0. I am joined by, I think this is a record for the channel. We got 6 players today. It's ridiculous. It's a party up in here. I am joined by Josh,
Yo.
Brian,
Hi.
Joe,
Heyo.
Matt,
Yo.
Noah,
Yo.
and Seth.
Hello.
And we start our session 0 with the story of your people, the beginning of your journey. There was no point in staying anymore. The archipelago had been home to 10 families for at least 5 generations. Yet something terrible happened. Something so irredeemably bad that they couldn't remain in their native lands. With tired eyes and exhausted wills, they sailed out south. According to stories passed down from the elders, there was a large continent the ancestors sailed from long ago. With no other hope, the unfortunate refugees spent 11 grueling days in their longboats with only the stars to guide them. On the 12th day, in the Brillig, the wary travelers spotted a sandy expanse in the distance. The landing was bittersweet, as the voyage claimed many lives. After a period of setting up camp and grieving, the remaining members of their community looked out to the strange land from the beachhead. What now?
What now? So we're gonna create our community and stuff.
Yes, that is what you guys are tasked with. I have some questions for you. Yeah, and just get some backgrounds about this traveling party. There's at least of the survivors. There's at least 3 or 4 dozen of you left. Um, so
Okay.
obviously the 10 families shrunk down a bit. Everybody lost someone on the trip.
What percentage of the survivors from the total are there?
I'd
Like,
say I'd say 1 in 3 died.
okay.
So it's like, okay. Those are probably the youngest and the oldest. Mostly.
The waters could have been pretty rough. So it could have just been like random anyone from the journey.
True. Yeah. So I see the first question is like, what's the name of your community and how is it organized? The questions that you've got for us as the players.
So then we need to kind of establish, I guess, our camp, if you will.
Yeah. I wonder what the countryside is like. Is this
So as we're looking around, what kind of landscape do we see overall?
The continent you're at now is temperate.
cool? Okay. Is there good fishing to be had here on the coast?
Okay. I mean, like we can get into like starting the actual session, but this
So-
is for your archipelago.
Oh, from where we originally started? Like
Yeah, yeah.
what our community was like. Got it.
So Abacus, as I understand it, we're supposed to be like figuring out communally where we're from and kind of fill that out. That's what you want from us?
Yes.
Okay. So I think the best way to start going about that is to kind of go around and ask what everybody's like kind of thinking of playing, because that's going to more than anything inform where we're from.
Makes sense.
Because if we like just at the beginning decide that it's an all human community, and then somebody wants to play an elf, that can create some dissonance. So why don't we talk a little bit about what we're planning on playing, what we're interested in doing?
Sure.
All right.
I'll go first. I'm planning on playing halfling.
Halflings are dope. We like that.
Yeah, and he's just so far my character concept is, I mean, he's a drunken kind of dishonest guy who's like, his primary goal is to scratch his way to surviving and getting money. And yeah, I suppose he's got values, but for the most part at this point he's yeah, well, he wants to restore, help build the community, but he's not very good at that. But he's a halfling.
All right. And Abacus, we're talking about like these 10 families. How are these, like literal like nuclear families, or are these more like clans, like small communities, each family?
To an extent, I mean, they are families, but not so much like more in the farmer sense. So like these families weren't like 4 to 6 members. These families were more like 6 to 8 members.
Oh, okay. But it wasn't like 10 families, like the pillars of the community sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like they weren't the more kind of farmers and
Catholic
families.
families. I think
Okay.
that's, that's what we're beating around the bush here. But yeah,
That's what they're beating
Catholic-sized families. Yes,
And
Okay.
and these went back like 10 generations,
at least 5 generations. Yeah,
5 generations. Okay, that's
And-
okay.
and the reason I put 10 families, guys, is so that if someone wanted to play an elf, a dwarf, a halfling, there were plenty of families to choose from and be like, oh, I'm part of this dwarf family, or I'm part of this elf family.
But so you have 10 families that have had enough generations that they've managed to build a sort of like stable community. Like, were they mostly reliant on each other, or were they trading with somebody somewhere, and the 10 of them are like very specific producers of something?
That's up to you.
I was
Oh,
about to say
okay.
that sounds like that's what we're doing right now is designing that.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was talking about earlier. It's choose your own adventure. Like we get to pick so many of the details.
Okay.
I do like the idea of going around saying like what our intended races would be, so we can kind of decide what each of those families are.
Yeah.
So we have at least one halfling family, and then I'm sure all of our families would have interacted a bit.
Yeah.
Well,
because
I
we're
mean,
a
when-
lot. We trade with each other. Yeah, and we probably intermingle a lot too.
when a group ends up in trouble, like that, you kind of either have to come together or separate. Those are your 2 options.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that creates your factions. That creates your daily life. If you, how do you handle as much?
Yeah. So has anybody else developed sort of started on a character idea? Like what other kind of folks do we have here?
I have an idea in my head that I came up with quick because I've never played one before. I want to play a dwarf, but I know that they like hearty food and strong drink. Well, mine's he's not a big drinker, but he really likes to gamble. And he's sort of the I don't know, I'm thinking, if we have all these families, well, this one finds more like learned how to fight and kind of hold their own, but really they're more interested in playing games and kind of like seeking, I guess, escapes from reality through games and gambling. Does that sound
Yeah.
Sounds dope.
interesting? All right.
Who else? Anybody an elf or something?
I was planning on playing a human fighter, kind of just a kind of a community leader, kind of a Boromir type. So, definitely a guy who probably like took the charge and led the survivors across the sea, kind of pushing to kind of cut leave the old world, go to the new one to kind of build new lives there. And I plan to play him very
So you like to help
active and
move
pushing
on?
forward. Huh?
You like to help move on?
Yeah. Yeah, just very forward looking into the adventure to come type of a guy.
Nice. Need those.
Okay, so we got dwarves, we got halflings, got humans.
I've never played an elf. That sounds like it could be a lot of fun.
Okay.
I haven't explored the books as much to know exactly how an elf should perform in this instance, but I feel I would probably lean towards nature and
Cool. So my first thoughts, I don't know, unless somebody else has something else to share. Noah, Joe.
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you for that. I was going to say my character idea. I was either thinking of going old sword and board fighter, or probably spear and board, or going with cleric. Because looking at later down that handout, there's a big spot around like the religion in the area of like the god Cosgrove.
Mm.
And so I think being a cleric and doing something with that would be fun.
nice.
Cool.
So for reference, Cosgrove is the Catholic parallel in this setting.
The one God,
The
versus
Jehovah
the
God.
the one
I-
versus the many.
So I wasn't well. I was thinking about playing a dwarf as well, but I'm not sure what having two dwarves in the party would do to the balance of the
That
party
should
itself.
be a lot of
Remember, the party's going to be ever changing.
Yeah,
Good point.
No
Every-
balance.
So
drop in and drop out any and every session.
okay, cool. So if
If you want to be a dwarf, be a dwarf, Joe.
then my initial thought would be every town has to have a blacksmith. Every town needs somebody who knows how to
Yeah.
needs a craftsman.
Yeah.
So that's what I kind of wanted to do.
Nice.
That sounds fun.
Okay, well I can see something kind of coming together if I can break in here really quick.
Yeah.
Because we've got a halfling family, at least one halfling family, dwarf, human, and elves. So if we want to lean into the themes of these various people, these kin groups, the halfling family could have been like the major farmers of our community. The dwarves could have been doing like the metalworking and the smithing. I'm thinking that my human family might have been the ones who made like boats and did the fishing. And that kind of like paints a picture of these different families that were really interconnected and very like, reliant on each other as opposed to being like standoffish.
Yeah.
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 And I think I
I've
like
never
that.
played an elf going elf nature direction, like helping find natural foods that we could consume.
Yeah, just like hunter gathering and
Yeah.
maybe doing stuff with domesticating animals, that kind of thing.
Rangering,
Rangering.
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah, when I think about like history of multicultural like societies, they're usually either united because of some sort of like a larger empire or whatever has brought them all together, or they're closely knit due to like their specialization in trades, and there's a lot of like, say they come together and they're in like a town or something because it's a trade hub. So it could be
Yeah.
that our old place where we were, it was like there was a lot of different kinds of people coming and going, and then bad stuff happened, and whatever that was, what was it? Something terrible, and then irredeemably bad, and then somebody farted real bad, and we had to leave. Yeah,
Uh,
so
That's another thing, Abacus. That the disaster seems a little bit vague. Is that on purpose?
Yes, that's absolutely on purpose. What happened? Was it a blight? Was it what is that? Daikaiju? Is that the Japanese monster? Um,
One out.
was it
You also,
bad
you
weather? Was it what was it?
So why did we all end up on in this space? Like, what
yeah.
drove us from where we were to right now?
Yeah, it would have to be something that a problem that wouldn't go away, like an invasion or like a blight, like the climate change disaster, or magic.
Magic is always an
Being,
option.
being
Yeah.
topical, it's since we're island people having a fire on our island, one of like our big food islands or something.
Yeah, that's also topical.
Yeah, yeah, no, I feel bad for Lahaina right now. Oh,
Yeah.
Hawaii,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So the one I like to think of in these contexts is because in the real world we had a mini ice age in the Middle Ages that caused a lot of my sudden migration.
Oh yeah.
If so, I like this idea that we're from these islands, and it starts to get really cold really quickly, and over the course of a couple of years, maybe we eventually have to abandon our homes because we can't grow the food that we like anymore. The fish
But
are
this
leaving
one
for
island, for whatever
world order.
reason, this
Yeah,
one island, for whatever reason, aka magic, can still sustain what we need. So we all kind of congregate? Question mark.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then eventually we gotta get in the longboats and leave, right? Because
Mhm.
that's the premise. Um, I kind of like this idea if it's a kind of a beautiful apocalypse, like the cold is accompanied by like an increasing aurora borealis, this sort of rainbow lights in the sky that get brighter and brighter and closer and until eventually, they're beautiful, but they're also terrible and we have to flee. Uh, it could be something like that.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Surrounding islands came to this one because it was the only one inhabitable.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we're on the main continent now, is where we
Yeah.
left to.
Yeah, it's like all of our home islands are in the past now. We've all abandoned them and come to the continent is kind of the idea.
Yeah. Cool. So the next question on our list of world building here is, what's the name of our community? How is it organized? I think how it organized sounds pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
So
I think
we got that.
we with our character selections, we've started that point. There's still room
Oh, yeah.
though with what we've got, considering the number of families and the number of concurrent players. There's still room for expansion here, so that makes things kind of fun.
My
Yeah.
biggest thing for how it was organized is I think what government did we have?
Right.
And so by the looks of how we kind of almost decided we're almost guild based
Yeah.
with like the families,
Yeah.
Like a
would having
council
like
of
our
elders kind of
I
thing.
was about to say a council, yep. Having a council like the head of each family
Yeah.
had being like our leaders. And would
Yeah.
we just want that council or would we want like someone voted in as like
Right.
a
I
high
would
leader and then
I
the
would say
council?
that we have the council of the initial, but as things are ever changing and always should be ever changing, we allow the option for others to step into place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because we're dealing with a population that's so small that direct democracy kind of just is the default.
Yeah, no,
Like,
that
Yeah.
that would be horrid almost in that, like, no, this is the only group that can make the decisions.
yeah, yeah,
With it being an ever-changing place and a varying group of people, like, I think all considerations should be in place, and that there's an option somehow. Things the people that are in position can change
yeah.
So
without.
is the idea then that the 10 families, like there's a representative from each of the families that sits on this like elder council?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like that.
but it could
And
be anybody from the family at any given time.
Then I would suggest as like something that might have developed naturally that like it's the rule there is this council, and one of the like central tenets is that each family is allowed to choose their representative as they see fit.
yeah,
Yeah,
and that allows for like each of the families to have their own idiosyncrasies when it comes to like,
Yep.
the dwarves might insist that the oldest member always be on the council, but
Yep.
I can imagine that like for my family, I was actually the representative because I was like this, you know, young, charismatic leader. So they, elected me to do it, though I'm not the oldest in the family.
Hmm.
And
Quick question. Was that the idea of being 10 families at the beginning or at the end of our journey there's 10 families? Because you said, Abacus, you said that like we lost 2/3 of our people?
No, one third.
One third. Okay.
Yeah, one third of your people. No, and I made sure to give you guys enough families because, like, I thought originally of doing like 6 or 8 families, but I thought that was too small.
yeah.
And
No,
so I
considering
thought
you
10.
had 6 players show up today,
Yeah,
yes.
right, right. No, and more characters are going to be made like down the line. Like, there
Mhm.
were a few players who couldn't make it today, who I do know will be playing later down the road. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure there was enough families to go around. That way, people aren't having to share elf families. I don't know if they feel weird
That's
about sharing elf families.
sharing
Yeah.
elf families.
so yeah, it behooves us to keep a couple of many of those families blank as we can, so that when new players come in, they can also take part in uh,
Yeah.
adding to that backstory.
Yeah.
So we don't need to like get everything figured out. We just need to like get enough that we can for
General
us to sink our
baseline,
teeth
move
into.
forward.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Makes sense.
I guess my last thing I want to add for the how is it organized is how deep are we going into the Church of Cosgrove? How deep are we going to Catholicism? Is it like just a couple of the families are going to practice it, or do you think it's like everyone practices it, but some more than others, kind of thing?
Also, I got a
Ye
question. How did
Yeah.
Cosgrove show up to your island?
Cosgrove. The
Hmm.
god? Well, I think if we were a trading hub, um, what is the god like walking around, be like, "Hey, I'm your god,"
I
or
meant the
was it
church.
priests? Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Yeah, I mean, I think it would just be through osmosis of like through trade, the evangelists or something like
Yeah,
generations
missionaries.
ago. Yeah,
Uh, I kind of like the idea that the 10 families in our community was in the process of being converted, but it's kind of one of these long, slow conversions. So you've got the shrine to Cosgrove in the community center right next to the altar to our local gods and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's not that we got completely converted. It's just that every generation a couple more get converted or something.
Okay,
Um,
hold on. This goes to a larger world building setting question. So, do you guys actually have a god, or are you guys just animists? Like, do you guys actually have a local god?
uh,
Uh,
I,
I would say we are potentially still each to our homelands, but we've understood that it's gonna take all of us in our respective levels to make this place work.
It would kind of make sense if, I could be wrong, but I imagine that most realistically, this one of the things that would unite a community like this would be a shared religion. But
And if we were 10 families that 5 generations ago set off from this continent, and now we're fleeing back to it because some great evil happened or whatever it is, maybe we took Cosgrove with us, but then since we were 10 families living out 5 generations, so what, 100 years, 150 years, whatever it is, like we've lost that extreme devotion and have just sort of incorporated our own version of Cosgrovism into our community, where it's something we worship and practice and it brings us together, but nobody's like super devout or
Yeah. I was gonna
like,
say I do a lot of gambling, so
and that may
Uh,
or may not be against the church, but so what then how about that?
And again, elf being more nature stuff, like
yeah,
Yeah.
Cosgrove is there. Yes, thanks, help, appreciated. But I still have these beliefs.
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
I think I like the idea that we're worshippers of Cosgrove. We have the shield. You know, we say all the right, have all the right general beliefs, but it's got our own kind of local fingerprints all over it, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, it incorporates a lot of, like, you know, our old animist beliefs that we used to have. That, you know, uh,
But
there's a lot of stories of fairies and stuff in our folklore.
but in having lived with each other and our varying belief spectrums, we've understood that there's this balance that we can still each participate in our general belief system and participate in the overall community belief system.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's like, you know, it's we're a community, right? You know, and we're not going to let, like, sort of like idealistic beliefs of the continent from 100 years ago kind of dictate what we do.
Yeah, yeah.
uh, it's not generally how these things go. So
yeah. I think in general, this community should be relatively tight knit because, so it looks like the amount of survivors. There's roughly 40 survivors, is what it sounded like, and that's having lost 1/3. So originally, our community was about 50 people. So that's, we'd have to be pretty
60 people.
okay. Yeah. So we'd have to be, have been pretty generally on, what do you call it? You know, tight knit, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We have
agreeable with
general
each other.
trust and appreciation for each other.
Yeah,
it sounds like the answer to our kind of religion question is that we do worship Cosgrove, but it's a very locally
Loose.
peculiar version of it
Yeah.
that, you know, doesn't exclude anybody of our community.
Sweet, I'm down for that.
Okay.
so what's our community's name? I assume this would be like maybe our new outpost or whatever. Um,
No, no,
I think
no.
we're
maybe
The
our,
still
old
talking
one.
about
The
history
old
right
one.
now.
Yeah.
yeah, old one first.
Okay. All right.
So I'm getting really big Iron Island vibes from Game of Thrones from
Uh-huh.
this. Kind of like, and then how our land isn't good anymore. And we have to want to try to go in, obviously without like the raiding and stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of inspired off of that.
Somebody else throw out some names, and then we'll smush them together.
I have Hearthhold written down.
Nice.
Mm.
You know, I tend to like the names of communities that are more focused on the fact that people actually live there. You know, Hearth.
Ohana. I don't know if you guys know what ohana is. Ohana is family in Hawaiian.
Yeah.
Oh, Ohana. How do you spell that? O-H-U.
OHANA.
Oh,
Ohana.
I like the name Grove. Cosgrove makes me think of like the Grove, like something like Ohana Grove Island or something Grove.
Yeah.
I like Grove.
Oh,
Grove
Ohana
Harbor.
Grove?
What?
Could you do it as Ohana Grove? Family Grove?
Totally.
Also like Grove Harbor, maybe.
Also, well, yeah. Like, so what is our sea situation like in terms of doing something like that as a harbor? Because that would also lend to what we're doing in our space.
We're a group of islands.
We were.
A,
Wait.
a group of
We're-
islands, or just
our
one island?
archipelago. It's a group of
Oh,
islands.
archipelago.
Archipelago.
Oh,
I see. Oh, so it was a whole archipelago that was right, not just one island. It was like
Right.
Yeah.
It was
community
a whole
archipelago.
archived pickleball.
Archive pickleball. Cool.
An Appalachian Park Ranger.
Ohana, like
Ohana Grove. Something Grove Islands could be.
I was gonna say like Ohana chain. I don't know. That Ohana chain sounds too weird.
It was just an idea. Doesn't have to stick.
Yeah.
I promise.
No, I know.
No offense. It was just
No, but I like it, and like I don't know. So I was trying to work with it.
Any
You
other
guys can
votes?
table that and go to
Yeah.
another one.
So yeah. Let's see.
What kind of trades did our community develop? It sounds like we kind
It
of have
sounds like we got a few already.
a few already.
Between farming, smithing, boat, fishing, hunter gatherer,
Yeah.
and metalwork. It sounds like we've got a few trades already going.
I figured that we developed whatever it was that we needed to survive amongst
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
or like 2 or 3 families even might be farming different
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And craftsmen are there to
Well,
mend stuff
and
as
that
needed.
makes sense because each of us comes from different regions of the world where the climates are different, and handling the soils and moisture for certain types of production, like that makes sense. Same thing for the mining. Like you've only got certain materials that are going to show up in
Yeah.
your given space. So
Yeah. So it's a question of like what like we would be able to do everything that we need in order to survive, but like what would be our specialties? That's dependent on our environment. So in our new environment, I mean our old environment, totally like fishing and boating would be a unique thing.
Yeah.
understandable.
Yeah.
And then we go to a new land and we got to figure out how to adapt.
Yeah. So I wonder what does their GM have the new place that we're at, is temperate. Are there like a lot of trees, or is it like plains, swampy? What's this?
Aren't we still working on history for these questions right now? Still.
Yes.
Yeah,
No, we're
on
still
history.
in the history of all of this.
Okay.
All this is just background information. Like
Not developing our current our landing site.
no,
we're not doing
and
that
maybe I should be more clear with my language because it seems to keep happening. But yes, this is all directed at what's happened in the past. As far as you guys right now, like in the present, it's like I don't know, a day after the wake, and you're just kind of looking on the horizon.
Got
You
it.
know, there's like some hills and some mountains and stuff. But I'm not really going to go into what you can see around you. This is more talking about what are the kind of conversations happening around the campfire? Who are these people around the campfire? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's keep it moving in that case. What kind of games did our community participate in? I've scratched a note down here of a game called Towers and Catapults. And this is
Yeah.
Okay.
And I imagine this is a summer drinking game where you like you set up uh, like bits of wood and then uh, lob like balls to try and knock them over. With the idea being that
That's
it's like it's that
that's
kind of
the
just like a
fun.
game that I play at my at barbecues.
Yeah.
As the nature elf, there, I'm like, uh, where did you get your wood?
Kind of like giant Jenga almost, but with catapults.
Well, with it, we're just throwing it. It's like
Driftwood.
there's no
Yeah.
actual like catapult in play. Also, you elves have got to get over the fact that we cut down trees because we got to do that to live.
Yeah, I know. I'm working on it because it does help when the storms come. I would agree with that.
Yeah, and I also don't imagine that elves are immune to freezing to death.
Hell no.
Though here's a thought, more of like a detail. An archipelago probably wouldn't have, an abundance of trees. So I imagine we would, like our architecture and our buildings and that kind of things would, be made out of like minimal wood. We would use wood, but like, not like full on log cabins. It'd be like, driftwood and things like reeds, mud,
That makes sense.
bricks.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you'd be surprised because both Hawaii and Iceland and things and places like that do use a lot of wood in their construction
Yeah.
because they're heavily wooded islands. Um,
yeah.
so
Going back to Iron Island's Game of Thrones, sorry here, they were able to build like 100 ships with just wood on their islands
Mm.
yeah,
in
so
like a year or so.
it's
Okay.
just we're maybe
Okay.
fostered a bit differently, a bit preciously, but wood's pretty common in island construction.
Okay.
Always
Going
palm
back
trees.
to other games, I think we need to get a gambling circle going because
Yes,
you have to gamble with
indeed.
multiple people.
That's right. Whatever this catapults and thing, I gotta get bets on who's playing and yeah.
Yeah. Well, I like
ahead.
the idea that the actual game is played by like two people, who are trying to knock over each other's towers,
Right.
and then like the spectators sit off to the side and like make bets on who's going to win or if they're going to hit the tower on their next throw, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
So I've also got a halfling game. It's called Quibbly Gibbs, and the halflings play it a lot, but nobody. The problem is that nobody really knows how it's played. They see like halflings being like, they'll like be standing around, and the one of them will like point to another and be like, "Oh, Quibbly Gibbs," and the other one's like, "Ah," bam," and they'll like have to like hop on a foot for a few minutes, and then like one of them slaps the other one's nose. They're like, "Nope, Quibbly, Quibbly," and and then they have to like exchange money and shit.
That's really good.
So it's like, yeah, and people ask them after like halflings like, "Hey, how do you play this?" And they're like, and the halflings start to explain stuff, but it's like they contradict the rules, and it's just really confusing.
Well, I
Maybe they
mean,
just make it up as they go.
Sounds like
if
Calvin Ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.